After 38 years of marriage, my wife betrayed me with her doctor and suffered a breakdown believing I had passed away. After 38 years of marriage, raising 3 kids who are now grown, married, and have blessed me with 5 amazing grandkids, she decides to pull this stunt. I've busted my tail to finally get us out of debt, and now I'm just 2 years away from retirement. She told me she was heading to Arizona for some education conference her job supposedly required her to attend. Like a fool, I drove her to the airport, wished her well, and planned to pick her up on Thursday. A buddy of mine happened to be in Vegas for a PBR event and sent me a picture. There she was, sitting in a casino with none other than our primary care doctor. I couldn't believe my eyes. It's Christmas, and all the kids are coming over. I've been looking forward to spending time hunting with my son and grandsons, something we do every year. But now, I'm torn. Do I just blow the whole thing up right now, or keep quiet and let Christmas play out? If I stay calm, I could gather more proof and confront her later. But honestly, I'm not sure I've got it in me to act like everything is fine. The other option is to completely ruin Christmas for my kids, and I can't stomach doing that to them. Here's the kicker: just last Sunday, she sang a solo in church. Then, the next day, she hops on a flight to spend the week shacking up with our doctor. In over 40 years together, I've never suspected her of cheating, not once. And I sure as hell never have. Now, the life I thought was so solid, so secure, feels like it's crumbling around me. I keep thinking how glad I am my parents aren't alive to witness this mess. Part of me wants to hop on a plane right now and catch them red-handed. But what's the point? They'd probably just lie through their teeth. And honestly, I don't have anyone to talk to about this. Both my brothers are gone, and I can't just unload this on my kids or friends. Maybe the pastor? Then again, knowing my luck, she's probably got him wrapped around her finger too. Update 1: I hired a private investigator and a lawyer today. We met at the lawyer's office, and they both gave me advice on how to proceed. I arranged for her sister to pick her up from the airport tomorrow, and I'm staying at my camp for a few days to clear my head. So far, I've managed to keep from telling her I know what's going on. It's taking everything in me not to confront her, or both of them, but the lawyer said it's smarter to wait and gather more evidence. Apparently, I can't sue the doctor for alienation of affection, but I'll be damned if I don't ruin his future in some other way. For now, I'm trying to keep my emotions in check, play the long game, and protect myself. Update 2: I decided to head home tonight. My mother-in-law is 84, widowed for over a decade, and I know this would devastate her. My wife has 3 sisters, all in long marriages, and they're coming to our house for Christmas dinner tomorrow night. Every year since their dad passed, I've grilled steaks for them, and if I bail, it'll set off alarm bells. I thought about faking the flu to avoid going back, but that would mess up our usual plans to hunt with my son and grandsons. I've kept things surface level with her so far, mostly texting, but I'm confident she has no idea I'm onto her. The PI and an IT guy somehow got access to her desktop while she was at work, and now they're getting copies of her texts through the cloud. I don't entirely understand how, but I don't need to. I'm meeting with them and my lawyer next Friday to review everything they've found. It's infuriating to hold all this in while pretending nothing's wrong, but the attorney insists it's worth it to gather as much evidence as possible. If I can hang on until next week, I'll wrap this all up neatly. My plan is to gift wrap the evidence and give it to her after Christmas lunch when we're opening presents. She'll open hers last, and I'll tell her to show it to the kids. Then, I'll take her phone, walk out, and head straight to the doctor's house to hand his wife the same package. After that, I'll file for divorce. Update 3: I came home from camp last Thursday night. She was there, and I was too tired to have much of a conversation. Friday, we hosted her mom and sisters for our usual Christmas dinner. Somehow, I managed to keep it together without her suspecting anything. Saturday, I stayed busy most of the day, and after church on Sunday, I went back to camp. My son and grandsons met me there that night, and we hunted together all week like we always do. Now I'm back home, and tomorrow we don't have any big plans. Our kids and grandkids will come to church with us on Sunday, then join us for Christmas lunch and gifts. I've kept my emotions under control so far, and no one has the slightest clue what's really going on. I've decided not to confront her on Christmas after all. Instead, I'm meeting with my attorney on Tuesday to review all the evidence they've collected and finalize the divorce papers. I plan to call a family meeting at the house with my son and 2 daughters, where I'll confront her about the affair in front of them. My idea is to do this on Tuesday night. As for the doctor and his wife, I haven't quite figured out how to approach them yet, but I intend to destroy his reputation and career, using whatever means I can. Thank you to everyone who's sent messages of support, it's been a lifeline. Update 4: We made it through Christmas with the kids, grandkids, and in-laws. Monday morning, I sat down with my pastor and laid everything out. He arranged a meeting with me and the doctor's wife. Together, we agreed to confront our spouses that same evening and demand they each write out a detailed account of the affair. That night, I told my wife I knew exactly where she was and who she was with in Vegas. I didn't let her speak or offer excuses, I simply told her to write everything down. I warned her that if any part of her story contradicted the evidence I already had, reconciliation would be off the table completely. Tuesday morning, I met with my lawyer to review the evidence the investigator had collected and to get legal advice. That afternoon, I marched into the doctor's workplace and demanded his immediate termination. By the end of the day, he was fired. Tuesday night, I had my children over. I let their mother explain to them what she had done. They were crushed, shocked beyond belief. My wife ended up leaving with our youngest daughter and has been staying at her house ever since. Now, I'm left trying to figure out my next steps. She admitted to everything and answered every single question I had, point by point, in the letter I demanded. I'm doing as well as can be expected, given the circumstances, and I'm still deciding on my next move regarding both her and the doctor. Update 5. I'll try to answer some of the questions folks have asked. 1. Did you ask her why? Of course, I did. Her answer? She said she didn't know why. She described it to me, and later to our children, as feeling like an addict. She admitted she knew she was destroying everything but claimed she couldn't stop. She told the kids that no child should ever have to feel ashamed or embarrassed by their mother's actions, but that's exactly what she had done to them. 2. How did she act? She's a wreck, completely shattered and remorseful. She's begging for forgiveness from me and the kids. She knows exactly what she's done, but whether she truly understands the depth of it, I can't say. 3. How did my children react? One of them told her outright, "It would have been easier to bury you than to deal with this." The others agreed. That pretty much says it all. 4. Do I want to stay married? I wanted to be married, that's why I never cheated on her. But now? I'm not sure anymore. 5. Have I spoken with the doctor's wife? Yes, we've met twice and stayed in touch over the phone and through texts. 6. Do I care about the doctor's family? I care more about protecting the next patient's wife from becoming his next target. 7. Am I divorcing her? I haven't decided yet. 8. Have I sought therapy? Not yet. Honestly, I just want this nightmare to go away. If someone could make that happen, I'd gladly sign up for therapy. Every situation is different people, different complexities. What works for one person might not work for another. I'm handling this the best I can given where I am in life. Some of the advice I've received has been spot on and incredibly helpful, while other comments seem like they come from people who've never had to face something this devastating themselves. I do want to thank one person in particular, someone who reached out and became a source of wisdom and encouragement. It's strange for me to connect with an anonymous stranger, but they've helped me more than they know. To answer a few more things, my wife is staying with our youngest daughter, not at her mom's house. Her dad passed away years ago, and her mom is 84. I don't want her mom to have to deal with this mess. My youngest daughter doesn't have kids yet, and there's no chance my wife could turn her or any of my kids against me. Especially not my youngest. She's 10 years younger than her sister and 12 years younger than her brother. She's spent more time with me, whether in a deer stand, on the water, in the office, or on the road, than I could even begin to count. That girl won't hear a bad word about me, let alone believe a lie. As for the affair itself, the first text I saw from him said something like, "How does it feel to be the most beautiful person in any room you walk into?" This was after a funeral we all attended. Real classy, huh? And honestly, I keep thinking about something my sister-in-law told me years ago. Apparently, my mom once said, when my wife got breast implants 30 years ago, she's going to be showing those off to someone else. I shrugged it off back then, but now? I don't think I'll ever get over the image of her doing what she did. She's always been a beautiful woman, she's heard that her whole life. But time catches up with everyone, and she's not handling it well. She's done a decent job of staying ahead of it, but it's a losing battle in the end. I haven't told her what my plans are. For all I know, she doesn't even realize what I'm going to do next. My daughter said her phone is dead, and she hasn't been in contact with anyone but our kids. So, maybe she's still in the dark. The doctor's wife called me after learning about his firing, furious and vowing to go after my wife's job. During my confrontation with my wife, I had mentioned that the doctor's wife knew everything and was making him answer the same questions I had asked her, in writing. Update 6: I had a younger brother, 14 years my junior, who was a college professor. Sadly, he passed away in a motorcycle accident in 2017. He left behind one daughter, now 24, who is married and has a newborn. She recently brought her baby home to see her mother and in-laws. My sister-in-law, his widow, never remarried. Last night, I called my sister-in-law to ask about my niece's schedule. It turns out my niece is staying with her in-laws, who live about 40 minutes from my sister-in-law's house. Feeling suffocated by my kids constantly hovering, I decided to take a road trip. I wanted to meet my great-nephew, who's named after both my brother and me. When I told my sister-in-law I'd need a hotel room, she flat out refused. "There's no way in hell you're staying at a hotel," she insisted. "You'll stay here, and we'll watch movies and eat ice cream." So, late last night, I hit the road. Before I left, I called my son to let him know where I was going. I also told him to lease out a rental property my company owns, a fully renovated house we'd been planning to sell. My instructions were clear: inform his mother to collect whatever she needs from our home and move into that rental. She'll pay rent to him, and he'll pass it on to the company. By Wednesday, I'll have new keypads installed on the gate and doors to the house, so if she wants her things, she'd better grab them now. Update 7: When I spoke to my sister-in-law, I told her I'd be coming alone to visit my niece and her baby. Naturally, she asked why my wife wasn't coming alone. I simply said, "There are some issues, and I'll explain when I get there." I arrived close to midnight, and she greeted me with a freshly baked pound cake, hands down the best thing I've eaten in weeks. As we sat together, I unloaded the entire saga. I'd been holding back tears for a while, but as I shared everything, I finally broke down and wept. She cried with me, offering words of support and stroking what was left of my ego. By the time I went to bed around 3 a.m., I felt a little lighter. The next morning, she cooked me a hearty breakfast of bacon and eggs and then laid down the law. "You might run the show at home, but not here," she declared. She had already mapped out my schedule. 1. At 1 p.m., I had a haircut appointment. She pointed out that I desperately needed one, and I didn't argue. 2. Afterward, we'd go shopping at Dillard's to find clothes that actually fit. I've dropped over 30 pounds in just 3 weeks. 3. Later, we'd attend a bonfire and fireworks gathering at a friend's house. 4. On Sunday, we'd go to church in the morning, and she'd visit her parents in the afternoon. 5. That evening, she'd cook supper, and her daughter and son-in-law would join us. 6. On Monday, her son-in-law was taking me deer hunting with dogs on an 8,000-acre timber lease. He's off work all week, and if I want to stick around to hunt longer, she promised to handle the laundry and meals. 7. Lastly, we weren't going to talk about my problems again until I was ready to head home. So, I did what I was told. She took me to her salon and warned me in the car, "I'm going to have some fun with you. When I introduce you, I'm using your first and middle name." I was confused, but she just laughed and told me to play along. "I'm giving these ladies something to talk about," she said mischievously. My middle name is my mom's maiden name, so when we arrived, she introduced me to the hairstylist using that. During the haircut, the stylist asked where I was from. "Detroit," I replied, knowing full well my accent would give me away. My sister-in-law didn't miss a beat and chimed in, "He's a logger." Next, we hit Dillard's. I hadn't shopped for myself in years, but we left with 3 pairs of pants, 4 shirts, 2 pairs of shoes, a tie, yes, $75 for a tie, and a Hart Schaffner Mark suit. My sister-in-law insisted it was the only brand my brother would wear. I never realized how picky he'd been about clothes. We even got a new belt, and she convinced the store to hem the suit while we waited. On the way home, she dropped another surprise. "You're my date for the party in church," she announced. She coached me, "Look at me the way you'd look at a new gun you're thinking about buying." I played along, except at the party, I was from Atlanta and sold road graders and had been married and divorced 4 times. At church this morning, we rolled in late and ducked out early. My sister-in-law joked that she didn't want to risk being struck by lightning for lying in church. She sat close to me during the service and even held my hand on the way out, which felt strange but oddly comforting. I'll admit, spending time with her has been a hoot. We've been like a couple of goofballs, Dumb and Dumber, as I've started calling us. She's been cracking jokes non-stop, and I've laughed more in the past day than I have in 3 weeks. Genuine, belly-shaking laughs. I hadn't realized how much I needed that. I'm planning to go hunting tomorrow and might stick around until Wednesday. I do have to be back at work by Friday, though. I've kept in touch with my son a few times, and he's concerned about his mom. He thinks she needs medical help. She's apparently been withdrawn, spending most of her time in the bedroom at my daughter's house. Her phone's dead, so my son and older daughter have been communicating with her through my youngest. The doctor's wife sent her a long text, absolutely tearing into her. She called her everything under the sun, except maybe a decent human being. My wife hasn't reached out to me directly, but she told my daughter that she doesn't blame me for not forgiving her and doesn't think I ever will. According to my son, she looks awful, like she's carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. As for me, I still don't see a way forward for reconciliation. I'm not rushing into divorce just yet, though. I want to be absolutely sure before taking that step. Some people have suggested divorcing and then reconciling later if I change my mind, but that seems like a waste of time, energy, and money. When I decide to file, it'll be final. If I don't divorce, I won't bother suing the other guy. But if I do go through with it, you'd better believe I'll sue him to offset the divorce settlement. For now, though, I've accepted that this is going to be a long process and that my life will never be the same. I started keeping a journal today. Writing things down has helped me organize my thoughts, and I think it's going to be a healthy outlet moving forward. Thanks to everyone who's reached out to offer advice or encouragement, it's made a difference. Update 8 yesterday morning, my daughters took my wife to the ER. She was dehydrated, and tests showed her kidney function wasn't where it should be. She seemed confused, so they admitted her, started her on 4 fluids, and ordered labs. A psych evaluation has also been scheduled. The doctors expect her to be in the hospital most of the week. My son contacted her sisters to let them know what was going on. He didn't mention her affair, just that she was in the hospital and that I was out of town. As far as I know, her sisters and mother are still in the dark about everything that's happened. I'm still at my sister-in-law's house. I went hunting yesterday but decided to skip today because of the rain. Last night, we had fried steak, mashed potatoes with gravy, homemade biscuits, apple cobbler, and ice cream for dinner. I haven't eaten this well in years. This morning, my sister-in-law told me to be dressed and ready to go when she got back. She said we were going rambling, though I have no idea what that means. I joked that rainy days were only good for 2 things, and I wasn't sleepy. She shot back, "Your kids don't need both their parents in the hospital for dehydration." So, rambling it is, I guess. I'm glad I'm here. I'm not ready to face my friends, and I definitely don't want to be back at work. Thankfully, I have my laptop and phone with me, and my assistant, who's been with me for 25 years, is holding down the fort. He's one of the few people who knows about the affair. He's the one who tipped me off about the Vegas trip. Writing all this out has been therapeutic, even though I know some of you might be getting tired of my updates. If that's the case, I'll stick to my journal. Still, I'm grateful for the thought-provoking messages and support. My head is clearer now than it's been since I first saw those texts. Update 9. I called my wife's sister today and gave her a brief overview of the affair and how it's led to my wife's hospitalization. She was shocked, apologetic, and very sympathetic. My mother-in-law is heading out tomorrow on a trip with a group of widow friends. My daughters jokingly call them the blue-haired hoe gang. They love their bus tours. My wife's sister assured me she wouldn't tell their mom about the affair or the psych evaluation. She planned to explain my absence by saying that my wife's condition wasn't serious enough to cut my trip short. She also mentioned that my mother-in-law had been worried about me after visiting our house. Apparently, I looked pretty troubled. The sisters are stepping in to help my daughters and daughter-in-law manage the hospital stay. One of them will take my wife home with them once she's stable enough to leave the hospital. I called my youngest daughter today and asked her to stop by the office to pick up a check. I told her to cash it, buy a card, and drop it off at her grandmother's house. I left instructions for my youngest daughter to swing by the office, grab my name stamp, and sign a card for her grandmother. I asked her to include a note wishing her a great trip and telling her I loved her. Thanks to Reddit for reminding me to do something I hadn't thought of. It was a simple gesture, but it felt important. Update 10. Turns out my sister-in-law's idea of rambling involved errands, the grocery store, dry cleaners, paying the electric bill, Home Depot, and, oh yeah, a stop at a clinic for testing. 15 minutes and $112 later, I got confirmation, no STDs. When I told Sparky, my nickname for my sister-in-law, she casually said, "Ain't no man with a junkie monkey staying at my house." Gotta love her bluntness. For those of you pushing me to get tested, you can rest easy now. I'm clean. As for my wife, her kidney function has improved, but her psychiatric evaluation revealed she's had a psychotic break. She's confused, thinks we were in a car accident, and believes I'm dead. Apparently, she's upset that my funeral was held without her. She's been crying and mumbling incoherent things. Last night, they transferred her to a hospital specializing in mental health trauma. The doctors say she'll likely recover fully, but it could take days or weeks. She's not allowed any contact with us for the next 10 days. My middle daughter is taking the lead as the family contact for updates. This whole situation has been an unnecessary, unbelievable mess. Back at Sparky's house, she scheduled me a 9:30 a.m. appointment with the psychiatrist she saw after my brother's tragic death. When I came upstairs for a shower that night, I noticed something odd. All my perfectly fine white Fruit of the Loom boxers were gone. They'd been replaced by Duluth Trading Company boxer briefs in bold colors: red, black, neon blue, maroon, and gray. Each waistband read, "Go Buckbeard." When I asked Sparky about it, she laughed and said, "The 60s called, they want them ugly drawers back." Plus, the boys needed an upgrade. Update 11. I returned home Thursday night after attending my Thursday morning appointment with the psychologist Sparky recommended. I'll admit, I didn't go in with the best attitude. I was angry and uncomfortable discussing my wife's affair with a stranger. Not the most productive session, but that was on me. I had to be at work Friday for a contract addendum meeting that required my signature. Afterward, I met with my kids to discuss their mother's situation. The clinicians asked us to submit a discharge plan to help prepare her for leaving the facility. I made it clear she couldn't come back to live in our home. They need to plan for her to transition into a rental property or something similar. Her latest status update was encouraging. She's made good progress over the weekend. The hospital is also suggesting family therapy sessions, possibly starting later this week. I've already told my kids I won't be attending those. Her recovery is her responsibility, not mine, and I'm standing firm on that. My kids don't completely agree with me, but this is the approach I'm taking. That said, I did commit to holding off on filing for divorce for the next 6 months. Sunday, I went to church and sat in the same spot where we've sat for nearly 40 years. None of the AP's family was there, and I didn't bother asking the pastor about them. I couldn't care less. Later in the afternoon, I met with a psychologist recommended by my pastor. He's an older gentleman, 74 years old, and works part-time from an office behind his home. I liked him right away. He outlined some clear goals for our sessions, and I agreed to work toward each one. It felt like the first productive step I've taken in a long time. I'm scheduled for weekly meetings and actually look forward to them. An investigator from the State Medical Board Examiner's Office is coming to my office Wednesday morning. This is related to the complaint filed against the AP by an attorney. I'll need to provide a sworn deposition about the affair. Every step of this feels like an unwelcome reminder of the mess my wife created. I don't think she's faking her mental breakdown, but I'll be honest, it's hard to feel much sympathy. Update 12. It's been a while since I last posted, mostly because there hasn't been much new to share. Here's a quick summary. 1. My wife is still in treatment and has agreed to stay for 30 days. She's doing better, but my kids agree she needs more in-house care. I haven't spoken to her directly since December 27th. She withdrew money from her retirement account to cover the costs. 2. I still haven't had a sit-down with my mother-in-law. She's visited my wife with her daughters, but I've only texted her to say I'll come by when I'm ready. She's been checking on me, though, calling to see how I'm holding up. She's sad but strong. 3. No updates on the AP. His house is up for sale, but I have no idea if he and his wife are still together or not. 4. I've had 2 counseling sessions now, and they've been helpful. I'm even looking forward to my next meeting on Monday. 5. The affair is public knowledge and is being talked about quite a bit. It's embarrassing, but I keep going to church and holding my head high. 6. My kids and grandkids are doing well. Staying busy with work and managing my son's re-election campaign has helped keep me occupied. 7. Lately, I've noticed more pretty women than I used to. I'm not sure if that's good or bad, but it's definitely something I've become aware of. And that's about it for now. My wife was discharged from the hospital on Tuesday. From there, she moved into a rental property that my company owns. It's an older house, but we renovated it completely, down to the studs. I still haven't spoken to her directly since December 27th. She's written me 2 letters expressing deep remorse and asking for my forgiveness. I've read them but haven't responded. I asked my children to let her know I've received them and that I'll reach out when I'm ready to discuss the past and what the future might look like. We have a housekeeper who's worked for my wife for over 20 years. I sent a team to our home, and under the direction of my daughter and the housekeeper, they moved a bedroom suite and other essentials to set up a comfortable space for my wife. They also bought some new furniture. The house has been ready for her since last week. My wife made arrangements to have the housekeeper help her every day, serving as both a driver and a sitter for the time being. Her sisters are staying with her overnight to provide additional support. Tuesday evening, I had dinner with my mother-in-law at her house. I laid out my position, and she was understanding and supportive. From what my son told me, his grandmother visited my wife that same night and didn't hold back on her feelings. It seems she had a blunt conversation with her daughter about her betrayal, which was the first time they'd discussed it directly. Tomorrow, I'm heading to Sparky's. She has tickets to a concert Saturday night. Originally, she was going with a friend, but her friend had to back out due to a funeral. We'll be flying to North Carolina tomorrow afternoon and returning Sunday. Honestly, I'm looking forward to getting out of town and doing something different. Counseling has been helpful for me. I actually look forward to my weekly sessions. They've helped me compartmentalize and make sense of the chaos in my life. Update 14. I wanted to give another update on how things are going. Thank you to everyone who's shown concern and interest in my situation. I'm continuing with weekly counseling sessions, and they've been invaluable. They're helping me process my emotions, organize my thoughts, and plan my next steps. Many of you have asked how I'm doing. The simplest answer is, I'm fine. But the truth is more complicated. I'm also heartbroken, angry, lonely, and deeply sad about what my marriage and life have become. I'll try to answer some of your questions. 1. I've sat down with my wife several times to talk about our situation, how we got here, the details of her betrayal, and where we might go from here. Some of these talks have been just the 2 of us, others included our children. I've also attended 2 of her counseling sessions, one with just her and another with her and all 3 of our kids. 2. At this point, I can't reconcile with her. Here's why. Asterisk A. The affair was physical. Asterisk B. She planned a trip with him and allowed me to unknowingly drive her to the airport. She kissed me goodbye, told me she loved me, and then flew off to spend several days with him in a hotel. Asterisk C. Her betrayal caused a psychotic breakdown that now requires lifelong medical treatment, including medication and counseling. This isn't cancer, dementia, or some unavoidable illness. It's a consequence of her actions. I would have stood by her through any natural, unavoidable hardship. Asterisk D. The woman I loved was honest, vibrant, joyful, respected, and beautiful. That woman no longer exists. What's left is someone broken, pitiful, medicated, and sad. She's retired from her career, and her spark is gone. 3. I've asked my lawyer to draw up a settlement agreement. I've provided full financial disclosure to her and our children because I want them to see that I'm treating her fairly. 4. She remains remorseful and continues to beg for forgiveness. She refuses to discuss any financial settlement or divorce. 5. My children wish I could reconcile with their mother, but they seem to understand my position. Easter was always a big family weekend for us, but this year, they made their own plans. My wife and I weren't included. I think they're trying to navigate a new normal. As for the AP, I know very little. His case with the state medical board is still ongoing, but I've heard he's working in an emergency room in a neighboring state. Beyond that, I don't care. Thank you again for your concern.